Supernatural Season 9, Episode 2, Devil May Care. Now, this episode gave us what I would consider like the two halves of hell. We got the King of Hell, or the thought to be dead King of Hell, Crowley, and the up and coming Queen, Abaddon, who is obviously a lot more powerful, and she's on the search for Crowley. And in this episode, she gathers some minions, teaches them, how to basically be better demons than they actually are. They have normal people as bodies, as meat suits, as she put it, in the beginning, and then they trade up to army men. And I like the scene where she's basically just looking at the four people, and the old woman. I thought that was so funny that they had like an old woman as a demon, and then she mentioned oh, I'm a crossroads demon. I thought, no, that makes perfect sense. And then Abaddon goes into that's exactly it. We're paying for what we should be taking. And I actually love, how the old grandmother, once again, like her dialogue, I thought was kind of funny, where she's like, we don't really know you, and you're talking about Crowley's dead. We thought you were dead until a week ago, and so she's like, prove that Crowley's dead, and maybe you'll have some merit. And she says, I thought you guys, I always thought knights were a little overrated anyway. And what Abaddon did to her, I thought was really interesting, because she basically exorcised her from the body, and like all she did was like grab her neck, and she just exorcised her and sent her to hell. And I thought that was pretty intense, because we haven't really seen anything like that since Sam had his demon powers, where he could exorcise the demons, and it was exactly that, except a demon did it to another demon. So it was just another show of force from Abaddon to show how powerful these knights are. And maybe we'll get other knights in this season, and if she isn't killed off, then maybe that'll be the next season, where it's like all the knights are back, and the angels are back in heaven or whatever, but Abaddon's still alive, and she's trying to basically take everyone out, and then she brings in the other knights. But in this episode, I thought she was really good. It was cool to get her back, because with Crowley being the villain that he is, he has like an actual rival. Obviously he's going up against Sam and Dean, and they're his enemies, but Abaddon's his actual rival, because they want the same turf. So she's gonna be looking for Crowley, and of course, with him being locked up, there's not much she can really do to find him, and there's not much he can do to get back at her. Even if he wanted to, I'm sure he couldn't, because she's so powerful. But she's looking for him. He's trapped by Sam and Dean in their headquarters, and they gave us a little hint, and I'm really hoping they keep with this. But when Sam and Dean leave him by himself, because they can't really torture him, he kind of has those flashbacks of him almost turning human. His human self, basically, being depressed, and wanting to be in love and stuff like that. Old Crowley, like the actual human Crowley. So that is still there, but he has to kind of just be left alone and trapped, pretty much. He can't be occupied, otherwise it won't be in his head. But when he's left alone to just trapped and doing nothing, it popped in his head. He almost snapped back to who he was for a little bit, and he kind of had a flashback of that in this episode. So that was really cool to see that it didn't just vanish. And that would be really bad writing if that happened. And this show doesn't really have bad writing in it, so he does have those flashbacks. Him, his good human side is still in there somewhere, even though they didn't go full force with it. It's still there. So who knows? Crowley could end up being a good guy at some point. Like, who knows? And even if he's not, he'll still be a great character, so it doesn't really matter that much. But in this episode, he ends up with Kevin, who of course we get in this episode, which I figured we would. Last week I mentioned they were going to be going back to the headquarters, because it was in the preview, I believe. So it was really obvious we were going to get Kevin. And Kevin goes through pretty much his turmoil of he was left alone, and when all the sirens and stuff were going off, and he was trapped until Sam and Dean basically opened up the door. And then he was kind of tortured again, mentally, because they brought like the worst person they could into the their safe house pretty much, and he's just trapped there, and he can't kill Crowley because they need him for information. And so he goes in, when he goes in just to get the files, and Crowley calls him in pretty much, and he kind of has like a Back to the Future moment when Crowley calls him weak, like nobody calls me chicken. So he opens up the little latches, I guess, or he moves them, and he goes in. He just starts beating up Crowley, hitting him with the little hammer and punching him and stuff. And Crowley says, his mother is alive, and she could be, and obviously it would be great if she was, but who knows with Crowley, because he does lie. That's what he does. But at the same time, he doesn't let people off easy. And they didn't show a body, so it does make perfect sense that they could write it in that she is alive, and they could just come across her randomly. Probably because of Abaddon, because obviously she's going to be going across the board trying to get anyone and everyone to spill on Sam, Dean, and Crowley. And she doesn't have much interest in Cass. I mean, I don't know why she would, but that could happen too. Just getting Cass because she knows that would obviously affect Sam and Dean could work too. So Abaddon could end up working with the Angels, and I would assume she's more powerful than them, but they'd probably be on a bit of the same level because they are still super strong and stuff. But she obviously has a bit more power than they do. And speaking of Angels, Sam has a really cool power up now for when he's almost defeated, and that is Ezekiel. And in this episode, what they did that was really cool, aside from him obviously just taking over Sam's body and wiping out the demons, they did the whole shadow thing, and he has his wings, but it's mostly like a skeleton, and there's still a couple of feathers on it and stuff. And it was kind of cool to see that it was like the broken down wings and stuff, but they showed the image, and he still has a lot of power, obviously, because he blew away the demons, and that pretty much scared Abaddon off. So obviously a demon or an angel that is that powerful, she is still afraid of, but I think she can pretty much defeat all the other angels, unless they also have those powers, which I don't think they do. But it's fairly obvious that Ezekiel still has much more power than most angels do. And as I mentioned in my last review, all the angels that pretty much get named, they are obviously all more powerful than random other angels. So Ezekiel and Michael and pretty much just all the archangels, they would have more power. So we might get to see that in upcoming episodes where other angels do have a lot of powers. And of course, with the preview I saw, we might get another really powerful angel, as everyone's kind of going after Cass next week. But for this one, we got to see Ezekiel take over. I love the line after everything happened, and he and Dean were talking, and Dean was like, Zeke, I'm gonna call you Zeke, and he just kept going. I thought that was kind of funny because he just didn't want to bother saying Ezekiel all the time. But I really like this addition to the show, and I was hoping maybe he'll at some point when he's powerful enough to leave Sam, and Sam won't just drop dead, he'll go back to the body he had originally, because it would be cool. He kind of replaced Cass as the angel on their shoulder, and then Cass will obviously just come in as another human, and he might even be able to help Cass get his grace back in some way, which would be obviously amazing. And we get him back in the trench coat. But I was kind of hoping that would happen. Also, I like the guy who played Ezekiel in the premiere, because that guy was in Dollhouse, so I love Dollhouse. So that's mostly why I want him to go back to the old body, just because I like that guy as an actor from Dollhouse. But it'd be cool if he kind of went out on his own, and once Sam was good enough, and he basically was like, boom, he grabs Cass as, here he goes. But I'm sure they'll meet up far before that actually happens. But it would be nice to see him pretty much leave the group and kind of go out on his own and try to fix things by himself, and sort of work behind the scenes and off episodes, I guess. So that would be cool to see. But for now, him being sort of the secret weapon, it leads me to believe that's gonna come back and kind of bite Sam in the butt, or well, not Sam, but bite Dean in the butt, really, for hiding it. because that's gonna happen at some point, and I assume it'll be with Abaddon, and she won't know obviously that the angel that defeated her demons was inside of Sam, and she'll be ready to kill Sam, and then Ezekiel will come out, and then the next time they meet, she'll basically spill the beans because Dean will probably still try to hide it from Sam, and that'll probably end up being how things kind of go south. And even just in this episode with her still not knowing that it was Sam, her just mentioning like in the next fight, if she's like you don't have that angel on your shoulder or whatever from last time, that could still blow up in Dean's face. So who knows how that'll play out, but I'm sure like there's no way it's gonna go smoothly for Dean because it's supernatural and it never does. But if it does, that would be a nice little twist and a great surprise to me because, like I said, nothing ever goes how they want it to, especially when it comes to them keeping secrets. It always comes out in some amazing way. Even if you know it's going to happen, it's still always really amazing. And it's just, crazy. Once they get in the situation, that's when it's really good because, me knowing it'll happen, I still don't know how, so I'm sure that'll be amazing. But love the episode. No cast in this, but obviously cast centric episode next time, so that's fine. We got the skeleton wings. Abaddon came back. We got Crowley and Kevin in too, and their really crazy interaction. A very little thing is Sam and Dean also blaming themselves for everything that's happening. Sam mostly blaming himself for what happened when they originally let Lucifer out, when the new hunter girl basically blames him because her family died, and the demons were kind of praising Sam, and so he blames himself for that happening, and obviously it was sort of his fault because of all the stuff that was going on, him being tricked by Ruby in the end, which was a great twist. I remember that. I love that. But he kind of felt like he was to blame for that, and then Dean, of course, feeling like he was to blame because him not only hurting Sam for making him almost die and pretty much only surviving because of Ezekiel, but also all the demon deals that have gone down since the angels fell, and all the people they've killed, he feels responsible for it because once again it is kind of their fault, but like Dean said, Sam isn't the only person who felt like he was doing the right thing at the time because you can't really see the future. You just gotta do what you can. So it was kind of cool to see that and them going through old things again. And I guess for Dean it's a bit more recent, but they're still going through their old things where it's like I'm kind of to blame for all this because if we just cut it off there, everything would be fine. But at the same time, with all the enemies they've come across in this show, it's hard to say that things wouldn't still be exactly where they are right now because you got evil angels, obviously super evil demons. It's just hard not to have problems when you have enemies like that, so you can't really blame yourself. But all the stuff they do, they are generally at the center because it's them. But love the episode, love their turmoil, action always really good, comedy always good. I love the scene when they tried to get Kevin to be like their I guess I wouldn't know the term for it, the FBI, but obviously like the head of the FBI or their like officer. And when Dean was talking to him and he's just talking, Kevin's just like, what? Like, what are you saying? And then he's like, yeah, and just hands her the phone. And he had no idea what to say. I thought that was an amazing scene because, obviously they normally have Garth or, obviously before that they had Bobby. And now they have Kevin, who's obviously going to be in the series a lot more, even though he was obviously in it a lot last time. But with him kind of being, in the home base, he'll pretty much be in every episode now. So that's kind of cool that he'll just flat out be in the series. And, I just thought that was a really funny scene. And obviously the end with Kevin and Dean talking was a really great scene where, Dean says, Kevin is family. And he says, you, me, Sam, and Cass, we're all each other. We're all we have. So that was a really good line too. It's those four now. And initially, of course, it was just Sam and Dean. And then when Bobby got into the series more, it was Sam, Dean, and Bobby, then Cass. and sadly Bobby died, of course. And then Kevin kind of came into the fold now, so it was really cool to get that line from him because obviously for from Sam it wouldn't be as special, but whenever Dean says it, it's obviously very very important because Dean never says that stuff, and like when he said it, I want to say it was 2 or 3 seasons ago. I think 2 seasons ago. When Cass was kind of working around and kind of screwing him over a little bit. That's when Dean first mentioned like you're like a brother to me, and that was a really big thing for Dean to say. So it was cool that we had that again because he doesn't say that to anyone like ever. So it's just Cass and Kevin, and then obviously his actual brother. So it was really cool to get that just to see how much Dean does actually care, and unfortunately, what he said about his mom was unfortunate. Even if she's alive, she's dead. But he didn't say that because he doesn't care. He said it, really because he does care and because he knows if he lets Kevin go look for his mom, even if Crowley said exactly where she was and it happened to be the truth and they, somehow figured it out, it would be nearly impossible for them to get there because they'd have everyone on them at once, like angels and demons. And so it just showed that he cared. So I enjoyed that scene, and hopefully we'll get more of that, and we'll get Kevin outside of the headquarters at some point. Somehow they'll figure that out too, which would be nice just to see him out in the world. But once again, to close everything up, love the episode. Everything about it was really good. Still my favorite show on television. I'm excited for Cass next week just to see what type of crazy stuff he has to deal with. Just from the preview, it was pretty interesting. Cass is kind of like just a homeless person now. We've seen him do all sorts of stuff, teleporting, killing everybody, heal here, heal there, trick this angel, trick that demon, and now he's just human, and he has to deal with food and sleep and cold and rain, and apparently love based off of the preview. So that would be really interesting to see how that works out. But comment below, let me know what you thought of this episode. Favorite parts. What are you most excited for this season? Abaddon, Crowley turning human, maybe, or Ezekiel being a part of the show. Or Cass being human even. So comment below, let me know what you think, and thanks for watching.